In Genesis 21, it says Abraham made a treaty with Abimelech. And verse 31 says, "Therefore that place was called Beersheba, because there both of them swore an oath." But if we read Genesis 26, it says Isaac also made a treaty with Abimelech, and after they made an oath, it says that same day Isaac's servants came and told him about the well they had dug, and said to him, "We have found water." He called it Sheba. Therefore the name of the city is Beersheba to this day. Some source-critical scholars say this is evidence that Genesis contradicts itself, since it has Abraham and Isaac, both naming the well by Beersheba. Their solution is to assign the first account to the ye source, and the second one to the J source. Allegedly, early Israelites disagreed on their history, with some believing Beersheba derived its name from when Abraham made a covenant with Abimelech, whereas another group believed this occurred during Isaac's lifetime. The sources were later compiled into the present form of the Pentateuch, and represent unnecessary duplicates on how Beersheba derived its name. However, there are actually good reasons to believe there is no contradiction at all, and the two accounts actually cohere nicely. The first thing to note is the mere fact that Abraham and Isaac both make covenants with Abimelech does not mean the accounts are contradictory, or are duplicates of the same event that were originally a part of different sources. We can find rulers making successive treaties in the ancient world. Kenneth Kitchen says, "That Abimelech of Gerar should have successive treaties with Abraham and Isaac is no more a doublet than Talmi Sharuma of Aleppo having successive treaties with two Hittite kings, Mursil II and Muwatallis II, first summarized in the second, or than two Karanta kings of Tarkhantasa, having successive treaties with no fewer than three Hittite kings, Muwatallis II, Hattusil III, and Tudkiliah IV. There are no doublets or triplets here, and none need be found in the Genesis examples either, except on flawed a priori theory. The real issue is that it appears that both Abraham and Isaac named the well at different times. Joel Baden says, "The site of Beersheba is given its name on the basis of an oath sworn between Abraham and Abimelech in Genesis 21:31. It is named again by Isaac in Genesis 26:33, on the basis of an oath sworn between him and Abimelech." The argument is, if Abraham named the site, there'd be no reason for Isaac to name it later on. But this is easily addressed by appealing to the context. The authors of Genesis have included details in the story that explain why the well was named again by Isaac. If we look at Genesis 26:18, we find an important detail. It says, "And Isaac dug again the wells of water that had been dug in the days of Abraham his father, which the Philistines had stopped up after the death of Abraham, and he gave them the same names that his father had given them." So we see that the wells Abraham dug up and named were filled in by the Philistines. Isaac went around redigging them and giving them the very same names that his father Abraham had given them. We should expect that when Isaac's servants dug a well, that he would give it the same name that Abraham gave it. Also notice that Genesis 21 only says that the place was called Beersheba, but Genesis 26 says that the name of the city is Beersheba to this day, which implies that after Isaac redug the well, it remained and continued to be inhabited until the days of the authors. Whereas in the earlier account, it lacks this language, since the Philistines filled in the well after Abraham had died. This implies the authors were aware of what the Philistines did between Abraham and Isaac, since the earlier account only refers to it as a place and doesn't refer to it as a city that has remained there to this day. So the two accounts fit nicely in a chronological sequence. Now some might object and say that verse 18 of chapter 26 was only added later by a redactor to make the two accounts cohere together. But there's an important detail that addresses this. Kenneth Matthews notes the name that Isaac gives the well, Sheba, presupposes the earlier account, where Abraham and Abimelech swear an oath together, and Abraham gives Abimelech 7 lambs as a witness that Abraham dug the well. The name Isaac gives the well directly recalls this event. To quote, "The name Beersheba presents a convenient dual reference to sworn oath and 7. The designation of the well Sheba is also the cardinal number 7. It further sounds similar to the word to swear, commemorating the sworn oath entered the same day. There is no apparent reason for the number 7 employed, unless the author assumed that 7 animals were likewise involved in some aspect of the agreement. presenting the event with 21, 28 to 29 in mind. In other words, the very name that Isaac gives the well presupposes the earlier account with Abraham and Abimelech. There is nothing within Genesis 26 that explains why Isaac would name the well 7. It solely derives from the account in Genesis 21. Nahum Sarna says, "The coincidence is highly significant. It indicates a causal relationship between the name Beersheba and the oath-taking ceremony just completed. One would expect, then, that the well would be called Shivuah, which is the Hebrew term for oath, rather than Sheva, which means 7. The anomaly proves that the present story presupposes a knowledge of the earlier one involving Abraham and Abimelech, as recounted in 21:32 to 34. There the number 7 predominates. So there is nothing in the earlier account which shows the later account with Isaac could not have occurred, and the later account presupposes the first has already happened, meaning the accounts are not contradictory or duplicates from different sources. They cohere nicely in the overall story. Now, some may try to argue that Genesis 21 gives the well a different name. Instead of it being the Well of the 7, the text suggests it was called the Well of Oath. Alan Millard and W.J. Martin note this is based on a misunderstanding of the Hebrew word commonly translated as therefore. It does not refer to the following statement, but can only refer to the antecedent statement. And the Hebrew word ki, which is translated as because, should be rendered as when or then. So Genesis 21 is saying the well was named because of the 7 lambs, and this took place when they swore an oath. To quote, the antecedent statement tells why it was done, this clause, when it was done. So the well was named after the 7 lambs that Abraham gave to Abimelech as a witness to Abraham digging the well. The well was later filled in by the Philistines. Then Isaac's servants dug it up again, and he gave it the same name his father had given it. The two accounts are not duplicate stories of where Beersheba derived its name. They cohere nicely in the overall narrative of Genesis, and are not evidence for the documentary hypothesis.